I think we are 4 minutes late. So good evening, everybody. You all welcome. This is the third meeting of International Exhibitions and Webinars of Design Studios 2021. Our evenings, very special evenings, will continue until May 22. So I expect each of you follow us until that time. We are here to hear two colleagues, two groups. One is from Gazi University and one is from Poland, West Pomeranian University of Technology in Chechen. It's a very long name. I want to say it. I want to be saying it very correctly. This is not a symposium, or this is not a part of a research project. This is a free evening that each studio introduces what they do and how they do it. We believe that each studio is a microcosmos that needs a special consideration. As you know, both teachers and students spend a lot of time, give a lot of effort in studio. Maybe the most of the efforts most of the efforts that students show are in studios. So how do we do it? Is the question. It is too much time. It takes too much time. It takes too much effort. But how do we do it? I mean, how do we spend the time? How do we spend the energy? What do we produce and how we produce it? Tonight we have two teams, let me say. One is represented by Professor Zeynep Uludağ from Gazi University, Atölye 1 or Studio 1. She is going to talk about, she's going to introduce about her studio. And Professor Zbigniew Paszkowski and Professor Jakub Gołębiewski from Poland. They are going to introduce their own studio. So, as the usual tendency, I will start with the ladies, and I will take Zeynep first. I'm sure she's going to give us a very beautiful speech, because I've been to several presentations of her about studio, and I've been reading about her studio in several journals. So although we think that we know the studio, I'm sure she has big surprises for us tonight. Thank you very much, Zeynep, for joining me. Thank you very much, Zbigniew and Jakub, for joining us tonight. It's a great pleasure to host you. And stage is yours, dear Zeynep.
Dear Pınar, thank you very much. I would like to welcome our friends from abroad, dear Zbigniew, Jakub, and I think Irene is here, I see. Welcome, dear colleagues, dear friends, and very, very dear students. Thank you for being here to share our experiences and knowledge together. And I especially thank to Pınar for creating this interactive and friendly environment that we need a lot in nowadays. It's very precious, really. I want to share our experiences in the studio during the last pandemic year, 2020-21, and the examples, of course. You can follow them from our Instagram site. Let me share some of the slides first. Yes, we call the topic as the emancipatory ground. What is emancipation and what is architecture? It was a really challenging topic first when we start to discuss it. But as we dwell into the problems, as we dwell into the topics, it became really very enjoyable, very discursive and nice for us. So let me start what Architectural Studio is. I mean, the atelier, I want to first thank of my colleagues here in Atelier 1. Of course, without them, we would never succeed to have such a nice semesters, let me say. Dear Gülşah Güleç, dear Kıvılcım Süzek, and very young colleague, dear Neva was with us. This is our group. We, since 2014, were dwelling on the topics of criticism, critical architecture, and such topics. But the last one was really different from the former ones in that case. You know, the Architectural Design Studio is the first place where students meet complexity of problems, a combination of cultural and social issues, social configurations, and the first functional relationships between the parts of a cultural configuration and technological constraints, of course. They are expected to understand the design problem and develop their own design strategies within a conceptual framework, negotiating the programmatic demands. This is the architectural cognition process at the beginning. This process paves way to the concept formation in students' minds. During this process, the process of conceptual formation, they first discuss the theme and then the physical concepts together, the neighborhood and also the requirements, the programmatic requirements, technological requirements, whatever. However, this knowledge-based process finds its expression in the design process. That is the creativity process. This is very much related to students' cultural and social backgrounds, intellectual backgrounds, national identity, and other competencies. The richness of this variety, however, it's very positive. It's a very positive thing. The richness of this variety in the studio is a challenge to introduce us new methods and new educational practices. Architectural design in the design studio creates a common ground that students explore their own paths to achieve creativity and aesthetic decision-making in their designs. Among the schools of architecture, the richness and strength of Gazi University Faculty of Architecture is the existence of different design studios, in fact. They all introduce different design strategies, different conceptual approaches, and aim to encourage students to discover their own design methods. So this variety is really very rich and very powerful. So I think our students are really lucky in that sense. Briefly, if you look at the studio formation at Gazi University, we see that it has 4 phases. The first phase is the basic design studio, where students first meet the architectural media and terminology, let me say. During the first 2 semesters of the first year design education, It helps to improve the students' imagination and enhance the research, understanding and comprehending skills. This is the first stage where students really meet the architectural knowledge, its terminology, and I said its media. The second phase is the first semester of the second grade. Students 202, 201 in our coded at Gazi. This studio has a threshold quality which aims to initiate an awareness about the problems of small-scale buildings, considering the natural and cultural constraints and user requirements. The third and fourth phases of the design education continue with vertically structured studios, which are our studios. And Atelier 1 is among those studios. And here, instructors who have experience in the field of theoretical sciences, that mean the academic praxis, and applied sciences in some studios that are the interdisciplinary praxis, and design application that are from professional praxis, and students from a range of different grades come together.
Dear Zeynep, just see the beginning part of your slides.
Yeah, I know. I didn't change it.
Atelier 1 and yes, okay.
Yes, I will change it.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
This creates an interactive, dynamic, and productive medium, both for the students and the academics. The existence of different grades in the studio, second and fourth year students, create a very good energy. Each studio has a different educational and conceptual approach, but mainly projects having programmatic complexity, deserving research and innovation on technical issues like large spans, acoustics, or stage design, or building information techniques, or building control systems, or help students to develop their design strategies. Conceptual approaches Atelier 1 is always structured around developing critical concepts and the conceptualization and organization of social spaces. We encourage students to discover their own design methods by understanding different patterns of lifestyles, diversity of cultures, traditions, beliefs, values, whatever, but all tangible and intangible values. We discuss all these meaningful conceptual and perceptual and cognitive issues in the studio. Moreover, to enhance the creativity process, we are always in search of new methods and new methods of abstractions that manifest in art, and new techniques of representation to explore different ways of communication in architecture. And this paved way to an intense relationship between art and architecture. We try to choose these methods and tools from an interdisciplinary fields and aim to take the constraints, to release from the constraints of the realities at the end. We have some publications here about the criticism. I will come on that point. First, I want to a little bit discuss what emancipation is for us, how we discussed it, how we conceptualized the topic. The concept of emancipation is defined in many ways and perspectives since the ancient philosophy. However, it's generally defined as an idea or an activity of being free from a restraint, control, or power. In the first case, it is discussed that humans are emancipatory beings only in their minds, which implies a mental emancipation process. But in the second case, it is suggested that Arendt-like heroes discuss this. In the second stage case, it is suggested that emancipation is beyond being an idea. It is an activity, not a mind also, but it is an activity. Yes. So these philosophical, the possibilities of being emancipatory in the mental and real world are widely discussed in the fields of philosophy. These philosophical discussions are also significant for other fields, particularly such as art and architecture, which are in search of emancipation through their history. From the beginning of the world, let me say. This search is about being free from restrictions of mentality, functionality, technology, society, history, politics, economy, whatever, for the sake of creativity. I know it's a very, very difficult thing for an architect because architecture is not like art. Art can release itself from those constraints, and because it is not, it doesn't need to be ethical or functional, but architecture needs to be ethical and functional. It's not only the programmatic demands, but also the technological requirements, rules and regulations, building and climate control systems, sustainability issues, those earthquake issues, ergonomic problems, requirements of the users, aesthetic constraints, everything has to be understood and negotiated. Despite these constraints, architects aim to be creative and innovative. That's the dream of an architect. We want to be creative, we want to be unique, we want to create something that is original. So this seems irrational, really. This is an irrational process while dealing with something rational and trying to be irrational. So we asked
Yes, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but people are warning me that they say that your slides are not going well. I mean, you're just keeping only one slide.
Okay,
yeah.
Yes, that was the second. Yeah, I want to show the publications that you can follow it. Okay. Now, emancipation thing is like art. Architecture is always an attempt to bring order out of chaos. The principles of art help architecture not to portray, but to evoke the ideas lost within the chaos of daily life. Hence, it focuses to the abstract world of art to realize the truth. So architecture is about combining the rational and irrational. To be in between, this necessitates an emancipatory process. But it's challenging for architects to design an emancipatory space while there are so many restrictions and responsibilities, as I said. The concept of emancipation is frequently identified with the modern architecture of the 20th century. It is suggested that modern architects emancipate architecture from its traditions and history. Yet emancipation is restricted by the material and structural technology in the modern architecture. Technological restrictions are almost irrelevant within the context of the post-neo or super-modern architecture of the 21st century. So as such, emancipation is redefined due to the developments of technology, particularly in computer technology. Computers present architects as emancipatory grounds on which everything is imaginable and designable in architecture. And architectural images are even more emancipatory and seductive in this century. Thus, it is an assert that main controlling systems in today's society is not suppression, but seduction. All the images seduce humans and transform them into consumers, namely consumers, as it is discussed in the theory of consumer society. Nonetheless, architecture is neither a consumption object nor a seductive image. But it is. It is a special and experiential as well as visual and imaginal. It is a critical fact that should be conceived not only in the field of architectural design, but also in the field of architectural education. So Atelier 1 as a critical studio, as you saw our publications, tried to be critical on this issue also. We designed various critical projects in the first phases. And the critical discussions on the theme of emancipating grant established a ground for us to make a deep search on the anarchist designs of Gordon Matta Clark. Yes. He who adapts some methods such as distracting, cutting, and splitting to several potential of an existing space and building. He even creates huge voids throughout the buildings by distracting. It is called as an architecture, anarchist architecture or anti-architecture, since he promotes not constructing but distracting architecture. It inspires us to use some specific architectural methods to design an emancipating space and structure, in fact. We discussed the concept of emancipation in the studio, both an idea and activity, as it is discussed in philosophy. Students are free to design the activities and functions of their architecture projects. They are free to use their own design methods. They develop their points of view, design strategies. They work on different areas and activities to design emancipatory spaces and determine the problems and potentials of those areas. Because the area, the location also created some potentials for them to be creative, to be emancipatory. So each student tried developed his own emancipatory, his own constraints and emancipatory tools against these constraints. At the beginning of this process, students design abstract models by using methods, those methods, which they discovered during theoretical searches and discussions, such as distracting, deforming, metamorphing, carving, stretching, overlapping, superimposing, juxtaposing, articulating, intersecting, integrating, and so on. Then they use these methods and models as three-dimensional tools to design emancipative spaces and special experiences. We encourage them to develop their designs conceptually, methodologically, and critically, as well as spatially, structurally, and experientially. Hence, they understand that our main concern is not the design, it's not to design a seductive architectural image during the design process, but a real image of architecture. This process involves using critical concepts and methods which conceptualize their designs as well. Let's go on the projects. First, they started with an abstract discussions on the concept that they developed their own concepts. For example, Tuğçe Gül is the second grade student. Her concepts was metamorphing, deforming, stretching, overlapping, superimposing, juxtaposing. And Tuğçe designs a metaphoric abstract model. Here you see the model. It is composed of prismatic pieces, and these pieces are stretched, overlapped, superimposed, and juxtaposed for her to form metamorphic structure, by which she discusses the ways of challenging and changing the limits of our personal lives. Then this is the second stage of her project. You see she proposed a youth and culture and art center at Sinop, Akliman. Her abstract model inspires Tuğçe to design youth and culture center here. This indicates their dynamic personality by stretching and overlapping and juxtaposing. That was the structure. Yes. Beyza is a third grade student. Her method of design is deforming, overlapping, superimposing, and articulating. This is her first model. She experiences to emancipate the image or the shadow of the object from object itself. She photographs this object created by deformed, overlapped, superimposed, and articulated cubes from diverse angles to reveal that its shadow or images are very different, even though the object is exactly the same. So she worked on the image, the different image of this object that is detached from the real object. And she designed a similar image in her design. The image here shows us that the prismatic spaces and structures are deformed, overlapped, superimposed, and articulated throughout the project area. She designed the Science and Technology Center at Maltepe, in Maltepe, Ankara, close to our school. The elevation and perspective views of the center are very different due to the methods used during the design process, as shadows of the abstract model photographed at the beginning of the process. This is her project. It's okay, isn't it, Kumar? The slides. Feyza Gül Ekim is also a third grade student. Her methods was metamorphing, intersecting, superimposing, and rotating. She did this structure in her abstract model. She experiences this method through grid structures by intersecting and superimposing them rotationally. By this way, the rigid form of the grid structure is metamorphosed and it turns into a more formal entity. This is her project. She proposed social and educational center for children with Down syndrome. She proposed this in Sorgun, Yozgat. It's specifically designed for children of having Down syndrome. As to integrate them to the city and society, the social and educational spaces within this structure are rotated, intersected, and superimposed to reflect the main design idea, defined as integrity. Saranda, she was very much impressed from Kafka. Her methods was metamorphing, deforming, and destructing. This is the abstract model. The writing of Metamorphosis by Kafka inspires her to design metamorphing grids. She interrogates the stable borders of the grids by deforming and destructing them to form an unstable model. She reflected this in her design. She deformed and destructed spaces, surfaces, and roofs, surfaces. It is contextualized in Kotor. She's from Kotor, Karadağ. That's her country. She discussed the environmental qualities. She said that the geographic qualities are very much related with the metamorphing process because they have the silhouette of mountains and buildings in the project area. So she proposed this design accordingly. Yeah. We also want to share with you some 402 projects, diploma projects here. This is Yusuf. Yeah, they also worked on the same topic. Yes, Yusuf. This abstract.
I'm afraid.
Yeah. You are still in. This is Yunus.
Yes, okay.
Nereden çıktı?
Okay.
Yunus, okay. Yunus Emre experiences to change the static borders of prismatic structure by the methods of stretching and bending in the abstract model. These are the fall semester students. We changed the semester. So he creates a new deformed structure that he discusses in the model from the potentials. This is his design. He designed a dynamic sports center in this project at Eskişehir Boulevard, Dumlupınar Boulevard in Ankara. By conceptualizing it, he conceptualized the possible space of free, both bodily movements and mentally development of people. The design of the structure is similar to his abstract model due to the fact that it's structured as a deformed topography by the methods of stretching and bending. Maybe, yes, here you can see this in his posters. Yeah. This is Hande Günar's project. Hande is also a fourth-year student. She used the methods of intertwining, layering, overlapping, and intersecting. For her abstract model, Hande designs an intertwined structure by overlapping and intersecting different structural layers. She discusses freedom through the intertwining in which the overlapped and intersecting the structured layers and compositions. This is her project. She designed this, proposed this to Italy. I don't know how she had chosen. Maybe this is the merit of pandemic days, because they were free to choose their sites from Google Earth. So she decided to fly to Italy. In her abstract model, Hande proposed those intertwined structures, and here she identifies the freedom with art and art education. Thus, she designed an art village in the countryside of Italy, where art and architecture are born, because she said that art is born in Italy. Hande considers open and semi-open and closed spaces in the village as the places in which people would see and learn and experience art to be individuals having a free mind, whatever it is. So let's pass Hande's project. I'm sorry. Really, this is also very much related with the topographic situations, natural materials, and all of the life and related with the daily life of Italians. This is Furkan's project. His method was autopoiesis, continuity, connecting and intersecting. Furkan develops an abstract model by using autopoiesis as the main design method. He discusses this method by creating himself again and again. This is a process of self-creation or self-formation. Therefore, he designs a three-dimensional grid, void here you may see, and this is a solid void relationship that made him, he created intersections. By this, he created the spaces, volumes. He preferred to design a museum in Samsun, where our War of Independence starts. So it's very much related to the site. He used this method in Samsun. In his project, he identifies autopoiesis with Kurtuluş War, I mean, War of Independence, in which we all struggle to create ourselves and our country by freeing it from the enemy forces and invasions. For him, it is the actual autopoiesis process in the society. Thus, he proposes an independence museum. The social connections and integrations of the country are very much reflected in this project. So these are the final projects of the second semester. This is Rümeysa. Yes, we go on with Rümeysa. In her final project, she proposes an agricultural and social center in Merzifon, in which one of the main sources of living in architecture. She identifies her project as common idea due to the fact that agriculture constitutes a common ground in the city. She designs this center as a structure composed of integrated and intersected layers, as the social layers of the city integrated with agriculture society. This is İrem's project. She's waiting to enter the Zoom. İrem proposes a singular prismatic structure in her final project. It is deformed to create a unique structure representing the unique formal and social structure of Merzifon. In diploma projects, we work together with 19 Mayıs University in Samsun with Hakan Hoca. You know, maybe Zbigniew also remembers him. And their students and our students worked on the same topic. They had some connections with Merzifon municipality, and the mayor asked us to design such a performance or art center. So we announced the main team of emancipation to students, and they all interpreted this, but designed the same architectural program. Yes, İrem, she anticipates, she has some anticipations here, you can see at the right hand of the project, right side. It is asserted in the project that this structure itself actually performs due to its creative, formal, and functional character that differs from the historical urban structure of the city center. This is Hatice's project. For her final project, Hatice designs a structure characterized with urban gardens in Merzifon, which is one of the most significant agricultural centers in the country. Sorry for my presentation. These gardens are conceived by Hatice as the manifestations of the agricultural center, agricultural activities in the city. This is expected to motivate people to cultivate and join this activity. She considers urban gardens as an intersection and integration process. Hence, she designs the project in a huge landscape. You see the gardens on the roof. These are some of our publications about criticism and those emancipation topics. And also for emancipation, for more information for the discussions about the discussions of freedom, liberation, you can check these literature. And finally, I would like to thank you, but before I thank you, I want to say that as Atelier One, we like to promote students to develop their ideas within interdisciplinary approaches. This is a very challenging thing, but we ask them to develop, to use a different media, a different approach for creativity. From the knowledge of architecture, we are sure they cannot be that much innovative. Releasing themselves from the constraints is one step, one phase of it. But second phase is really to be innovative, is really to be courageous enough to use interdisciplinary approaches like art, philosophy, sociology, whatever, and ask creative questions instead of looking for the requirements, programmatic constraints. They have to, of course, they have to give an answer to all those programmatic constraints, programmatic things. They have to consider all technological issues. If they are designing a theatrical stage, they have to make it as they should do it. Technically working, it should perform actually very, very successfully. But on the other hand, they have to develop their own teams. They have to find themselves their own inspiring points, their own methodologies, their own conceptual frameworks, conceptual cognitive minds to design. When they graduate from the university, because they are all alone and all the clients will ask them to solve a problem, to make something very programmatic, very concrete, very much seen in the architectural market. If they want to be different, to be unique, they have to look at themselves, discover themselves. But on the other hand, they have to learn a lot about architecture, history, and about all those theoretical things. They have to read very, very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening me. Sorry for the problems that I created maybe in the slide changing. And finally, I would like to thank Gülşah and Kıvılcım and Neva, of course. They are all with me in this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zeynep. We saw all the slides, don't worry about it. They were in perfect order, and we grasped the main idea. Also, your presentation, in your presentation, we understood the methodology you use in your studio, from the, let me say, the methods to the reality. You have a step-by-step process, and it's very amazing to see how students are responding to it. Some of the students are, I know, they come after you, they visit our studio, or they come to us first and then they visit your studio. So some of the names were very familiar to me. And it's very interesting for me to see how they can adapt themselves to different methodologies, to yours and to ours. I think we are doing a good thing in Gazi. We are just giving them, as you said at the beginning of your speech, we are giving them 7 opportunities from which to choose. This is a very good side of our education system, and I'm very fond of it as well. Thank you very much for your precious talk. I have a lot of questions in my mind. Your presentation was very liberating as well. So I'm just hiding them for the last part of our meeting. Also for the audience, you can write your questions to the chat section of this page. Our assistants, Gizem Özkan-Üstün, collects them all and reflects it to me so that I can ask to presenters. And also in the content of these meetings, we ask the presenters to introduce an exhibition to us. I think Zeynep's exhibition is her studio's Instagram page. You can find the address in the chat section as well. In that page, you can see, I know it, that's why I can say it very comfortably, not only the works that you see here, you saw here this night, but also the works previous to, that belongs to previous semesters as well. Isn't it, Zeynep? Your all semester's work is in your Instagram.
Exactly, they are all there. Okay. I'm gonna write it again into the chat.
Okay, thank you very much for the Gazi part. Thanks a lot to Professor Uludağ. And now stage is Polish side. Jakub Gołębiewski and Zbigniew Paszkowski are from the Western Pomeranian University of Technology in Szczecin. As I said before, you are all welcome. And I think it was the beginning of 2000s, 2004, 5, 6. I'm not sure when it was, but Gazi University was organizing winter schools under the chair of Professor Nur Çağlar. And Zbigniew Paszkowski visited our school. He kindly taught to our students, and most of the teachers we have now are familiar with him. So you welcome again, Mr. Paszkowski. And Jakub Gołębiewicz was also with us before the pandemic with another colleague. He visited our school in the Erasmus staff mobility context. He made beautiful speeches and he joined our studio. Thank you very much for joining us again and being with us tonight. So stage is yours. We are wondering what you do in your studio and how you do it.
Thank you very much for the invitation and for the introduction. I must add that we have cooperated with the Gazi University since 2004. It was at first a conference, then the winter school, then Erasmus, and almost every year we had some contact with Turkey. It was at first only Ankara, then it joined also Izmir, and it was really very nice time spent with you, with your colleagues, and with students. And also we tried to establish more tight connections, so the students could come to study in Poland. And there were several, I don't know the exact number, but I think it was quite a big number of students who visited Szczecin, our technological university, and also my private office, some of them. So I think these connections were very useful for both parties, and we would like also to continue it. My colleague, younger colleague Jakub, is also been involved in the cooperation. So I do hope that he will also be able to continue after I am retired. Yes.
Yes, I can confirm, absolutely.
Be sure. Yeah, be sure we will continue.
Yes. Concerning the topic, we had a certain problem because we have another type of organization of our education. So in fact, we don't have something like the studio like you have, that you can follow with the same thematic all in in one group of subjects. We have different subjects which are given to us because of the program, of the official program, of the state program we have to fulfill. But we found out that there is a certain unity in the certain part of subjects we have. Maybe we will start with the presentation now. We have prepared the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation. I hope it will appear before your eyes.
Yes, it is okay now.
This is okay
Can you
now.
make it full
And
screen,
we have also prepared the exhibition for diploma project, which is on the Art Steps program. I think it is already visible, or...
Yes, it is visible.
Yes, it is visible, and its address is in the chat section.
Oh, okay.
That's fine.
Okay, that part will be in the chat. Okay, so concerning our topic, we found out that there is a certain link between the things which are going in our city and our educational program, which is quite different. I will try to explain the specific of our academic program. But the important thing is that the place we are living in, the city of Szczecin, is very much connected to water, to river, to the sea, to the lakes, with a beautiful landscape around. And this is a very important thing for our education, because a lot of projects, a lot of problems we have in the city is connected with a process of ongoing process of transformation of the city. And this process of transformation is also causing a lot of problems, subjects who have to be solved somehow. So we decided that our design studio, let's say, or subjects in which we try to learn design, to teach design, to educate our students, will be connected in certain extent, not only, but in certain bigger extent with the waterfronts, with the water and with the dynamics of the changes which have been introduced to our city due to the Second World War circumstances and after war reconstruction. And also today we have several important not only events, but processes who are changing the city, who are changing the face of the city. This all is very challenging, very interesting, and also giving a lot of inspiration for our students for the process of teaching and of preparing the design. But it is let's say the explanation of the water from dynamics title of our studio. Let's say the direction in which we are trying to thematically to interest our students. But coming back to the scheme of our teaching process, we have two degrees of studies. S1 is the first degree of studies. It's an engineer degree, and it lasts 4 years long. And the second degree studies is a master degree, which lasts 1.5 years and gives a master degree to the absolvents of the S2 second degree studies. In our studio, we have several subjects which are connected to history and theory of architecture and urban planning. And these are mostly the lectures which are leading auditorium, and also and this is going parallelly to the classes in design, both in the first stage in the S1 studies, so engineer studies, as in the second stage studies in master studies. This lectures are not only about the history and theory, but also about the heritage protection, about the archaeology, about the conservation theories, and also about architectural design connected to the problems of conservation of monuments, because all the cities which are in Europe are based on some historical backgrounds, on some roots. So in fact, everywhere where you are trying to do something, you have to do also with the history, with the conservation of the rest of the history, or even with the conservation, maintenance, and reuse of the existing buildings. So this topic of conservation, in this case of our studio, was focused on waterfront dynamics, and we would show you some projects also. So it is these projects are done in different way. It is partly the projects on the engineer stage, which are easier, and then the more complicated on the second stage, final diplomas on both stages, both the engineer diploma as a master diploma are already the own work of our students with our help. Well, and there are some other courses which are a little bit explaining the methodologies, the techniques, and so on. So the basic courses of our design studio, it's heritage protection, archaeology, and conservation theories, and architectural design in the part of so-called conservation. That's not only conservation of old buildings, but also the additions to the existing context, and some new developments in some specific protected areas. And we have also some elective courses, so the students have the possibility to choose some specific subjects, like methodology of scientific work concerning the conservation of monuments and urban regeneration, also conservation techniques as another elective course, and advanced issues of engineering and technology in design, conservation of monuments. So there are different lectures, and different topics of these elective courses. Okay, and we can observe the certain synergy between subjects in the educational process, and on the example of the master degree level, we can see on this scheme that the heritage protection, archaeology, and conservation theories are giving some theoretical knowledge which is used for architectural design conservation. Also, this more practical knowledge concerning conservation technique and advanced issues of engineering and technology in design give some theoretical but also practical knowledge to advance issues of engineering and technology in design. And finally, these both directions are giving the students more practical skills, and are enabling them to make some more practical design, basing on the knowledge on other examples and so on. And this is one direction which allows them to make diploma project design, and also some theoretical protection, some theoretical knowledge about heritage protection, archaeology, and conservation theories gives also a methodological way of scientific work, and some practical skills, which is also in the seminars, and then also it gives some background for the project. We would like to concentrate on some design, which is on some design classes which are led in our studio. This is architectural design conservation, and two diploma design. Diploma design as a first step, and diploma design as a second step of conservation of monuments and urban regeneration. This second cycle studio, which is, as it was mentioned, the studio for master studies, has several main characteristics. First of all, it is a historical and conservation issues, which are included within groups of design subjects. That is conservation design, specialized design resulting from local conditions, and is more bound to the idea that the city is a field of knowledge, that we have a lot of studies to do in order to be able to go forward, to propose something which will not harm the existing values, which are hidden sometimes, or sometimes not properly maintained, but existent in the city. Then another characteristic is so-called design context, with the field of theory and history of architecture and urban planning, and also heritage protection, cultural studies, archaeology, and the theory of conservation. What we understand under design context is that we are in the built context. We are only adding some new elements to the existing realm of different values of architectural items and systems and compositions. We can add something. So willing to add some new elements, we have to look around and see the context and to try to concentrate on harmonic development of the areas and of the whole city. And then the practical and workshop skills, which is very important for architects, because the absolvents of our faculty, not only absolvents, but always is already students, are working within different studios, designing architectural buildings. So this workshop skills, this practical ability to produce good architecture and to have a background in context and in historical and conservation issues, it's very important for this education. Okay. Well, the diploma design in the second cycle, master studies, is depending on the diploma profile resulting from the chosen topic. So the students can choose the diploma promoters, the professors. Lot of our students are choosing also our studio, and the master diploma has to contain either historical or conservation issues, or maybe entirely devoted to these subjects. The learning outcomes in the diploma design are relating to topics of greater complexity, with urban planning, such as public utilities, revitalization of building complexes, etc., as well as the ability to look critically at specific issues, such as using the experience gained during studies to conduct a critical analysis of conditions and formulating design proposals in the complex interdisciplinary context. This formulation is written in our syllabus, so we have to teach in the way the absolvents of our studio, of our studies, can be able to get these outcomes during the diploma design process. The historical context, the complexity of issues occurring in the place where the project is carried out, the need for a creative compromise, these are all tasks that await a graduate of master's studies within the profession of the architect. So this must be learned, because after that it's more development-oriented approach of the architectural offices, and this knowledge we are giving to the students, the absolvents, is in many cases a very important issue to obtain the architecture of higher quality and good contextualized in the surroundings. Well, we have some selection of design which we would like to show you. Of course, we will not able to show too much because of the time, but these chosen design issues are corresponding to the formulated elements of the curriculum, as well as changes and processes taking place in the modern cities. To show how in the Northern Europe it looks like, we have to look to London, to Hamburg, to see that the processes of the waterfront areas are ongoing, and they are making quite different and very extensive challenges for the cities and for architects, for urban planners, and for conservation of monuments in different ways. In many cases, these processes had very significant results, and like it is in the docklands in London or in Hamburg, Hafen City, which are the leading examples of these transformations, where the city can gain the area, can build at the waterfront, and can produce very challenging, exciting buildings of a big impression, like those in Amsterdam, Hamburg, Opera in Oslo, or Black Diamond in Copenhagen. So the processes are also in Polish, other Polish port cities, like for instance Gdańsk, in this way, the shipyard in Gdańsk and the port area, and Łasztownia Island in Poland, in Szczecin, they are undergoing very extensive transformations. So this case of Szczecin, where the relocation of industry in the scale of the city and in the scale of metropolitan area is going on. Especially the relocation of port and industrial functions from the central riverside areas are causing the situation where we can say the waterfront is becoming a very dynamic, very challenging and very developing area of the city. Of course, there are other very developing areas like surroundings of the city, the so-called urban sprawl, which is still ongoing. But the most challenging, the most attractive, and the most expected is what will happen in the middle of the city, on the waterfronts, on the riverside. And we see the case of storage islands in Gdańsk, which has been reconstructed in the way you can see here. So the first slide was before the demolition, then it was empty, and during that time, and finally the case of storage island in Gdańsk after the reconstruction. So you see there's a big dynamic, and in the very short period it changes. This phenomenon driving the dynamics of waterfronts in Szczecin is composed of two elements: relocation of the port and industrial functions from the riverside areas, and reconstruction of historic urban structures that were destroyed during the World War II, which we still are trying to maintain together. So this area is quite big. It's about 200 hectares of area, which is undergoing the transformations, and also the embankments of the left bank is also under new reconstruction. So many projects which are students going to do and trying to perform, is connected to this dynamic, because it's very challenging, because it's very important, because you can study and try different approaches. You can see the characteristic of this dynamics on these slides. Yes. Oh. How it has changed during the last 60 years, but also how still it has to be changed, because it's empty. Yes, in many cases. So these are. It's hard to believe that it was like that, and after that it was like very empty area, or with a big motorway going on. So the city changes. This challenge of change is also a challenge for architects to predict what will happen in the future. So we are trying to study this problem with our students, with our diploma project students. So there are different projects, different approaches, and even competitions which are worldwide organized concerning this area. But it's going very slowly, everything. We have some changes already. There's a new marina which has been several years ago built after the competition, after the international competition won by the design group from Krakow. We have some very interesting events which are going on in this area. It is no more the port, the harbor, the closed area, but it is an open area for the public. So the public space and the tall ship races and the different venues, different events are organized at this waterfront, which makes this area very dynamic and very attractive for different type of development. So this is one of the buildings which is under construction now. It is a project, a competition project, which has been won by also one group from Warsaw, and it's under construction. And this makes a big challenge for our students to try to produce projects which will follow this line of reconstruction, because we know that this area is very attractive, very exposed, and gives a lot of fun to study this historic, both the historic cultural area as a new functionality and the post-war development. So these main two aims of the projects are underlined: protection and revitalization of a historic cultural area, in case we have something to protect and to revitalize, and also restoration of the functionality of this post-port area. So there is no more port there. What to do with the area? We want to bring it back to the public, to the citizens, and how to restore this functionality. And these two problems are driving the studio. These three main design elements we see is urban design, architectural design, conservation and protection of monuments, which are combined together in different constellations to maintain, to solve the problems which are occurring in the waterfront areas. As far as specific pedagogies that lead the studio, we can say this search and design methodologies. First of all, this site visits. It's very important to visit the site before starting any studies, any projects. Then the queries in the archives, to look at the past of the area, to look at the maps, on old maps, try to understand the changes in the history which has been done. So these historical studies are a very important part of the project. Then also it's very important to analyze the contemporary conditions and context of the area and the needs of the public, of the society, to arrange new functions. And finally, the compositional studies, to see the relation and the composition of the buildings and of their surroundings. We have two main approaches in the design. One is innovative, to find out the innovative forms in the historical context. And second one is about the reconstruction of historical structures in new architectural forms, so-called creative continuation or critical reconstruction, let's say.
So we have here we can see our main studio design projects. First one is architectural design conservation, which takes 2 semesters, and during the first semester, the specificity of first semester is analytical work and research. And as a result of this semester, we have analytical study and urban project. And during second semester, there is a design work that ends with final project in the architectural scale. And we have a similar division during the diploma design. Also, this first semester of diploma design is most focused on analytical work and research study, and ends usually with urban project, so with urban context for this diploma design. And the last semester it's a design work and final project in an architectural scale. And here we can see some projects. On this slide, we have a project made at first semester of architectural design conservation, and it's an analytical study for the waterfront part of Old Town that was destroyed during the World War II. So we have some analysis, like historical analysis, analysis of the existing urban structure, of the height of the building, for example, shapes of the roof, and kind of a curvature, urban curvature that we can see here. And of course, at the end of this analysis, we have some urban design that in that example, it shows the idea of reconstruction of the waterfront near to the edge of the river that was destroyed during the war, and it doesn't exist now. Also with some different kinds of buildings, different kind of shapes on this waterfront edge. And these are projects that were made during the second semester. So this is this kind of architectural scale of buildings. So each group have chosen one quarter from this Old Town waterfront edge and prepared architectural design with different functions like hotels, apartment buildings, or multifunctional buildings that are in the modern, let's say, the design plays a modern language of architecture, but still it fits in the historical scale and maybe has some citations from the forms of historical buildings. This is another proposal, opposite side of this waterfront, also connecting some historical shapes of buildings that were situated in this waterfront with some modern architectural technologies and some modern solutions.
A special challenge for our students is to provide some design projects on the edge of the Uludağ River, which are, let's say, very powerful and significant, like icons, because they are very good visible. They are very important. One of this project is a diploma project by Agata Ukleja for the railway station, for the main railway station, which connects the old railway station. We can see here this white building, the low white building, with a new structure, which will compose not only a railway, but also bus station and the parking and different other facilities. This project was granted with the prize of the president of the city, because every year we have some kind of a competition between the diploma projects, and the city, the mayor of the city is very much interested in having future architects with interesting ideas about the development of the city. So we have this connection, this connection with the real problems of our city. So the waterfront is a very important issue. Here's another sample of a student work, which is also a diploma project of Aleksandra Kmieć. It's a film studio. This project has been also very highly appreciated and has won a prize in the contest of the final diploma projects, which is also placed on the edge of the river, on the half island, with a very big significance. So you see, it is a totally new architecture, but the importance of the place, of the context, is so so challenging, and also the change of the history, that not only reconstruction is seen in this area very well, but also the trials to make some modern architecture are very welcome. This is another project concerning the old harbor port facilities, which are still intact, which are in quite a good condition, but useless, let's say. The system of transportation, of the port transportation, has been changed so much that there are some buildings which are very nice, but they have no use, in fact. So the new use which we proposed was a harbor museum, the port museum, and this existing building has been extended with the new architecture. So there's both the reconstruction as the extension of the building to house the different items which are showing the history of port facilities and the kind of the museum. Okay. So the specific contribution to architectural education, there was a question put for our presentation. So what we see as the specific contribution, it is building awareness of the complexity and comprehensiveness of activities undertaken in the historical area. Secondly, it's learning to use various sources of information, libraries, archives, map resources, geodetic resources, archaeology, specialist studies, not only Google, linking the functional and special programs of the design facilities with the planning requirements and development trends of the city. So not only the ideal planning in nowhere space, but very much connected to the earth, to the city, to the place, and a critical discussion with provisions of local plans also, so that we have the whole knowledge about what is going on, what should be, what could be, and so on. Then the methods of creating a new architecture in a historical setting, and taking into account strong exposure in the waterside zone, a landscape analysis, composition of principles of dominant and domination and subdomination, scale and continuity of development. So all these compositional and creative elements are very important here. Also, preparation of specialized research and professional staff to take up topics related to revitalization as a kind of a future task, not only design, not only creative, but also research based or professional in the revitalization processes. There are a lot of people needed to fulfill all these tasks which are given to the city, not only to Szczecin, but also to other cities. Well, the conclusions, the studio-specific consideration of 21st century and its architecture. So we think the process of transformation of waterside areas are multi-wave, long-term, and complex. The introduction of temporary uses of post-industrial areas during the implementation of the target investments is often necessary. So not only the final goal, but also what will happen within this 10, 20, maybe 30 years between the state of now and the state, the final state of art, which will be in many years. The temporary uses are very much important. And I must say, my colleague Jakub has done about this temporary uses his PhD. So he is a specialist in temporary uses for the post-industrial area. About next is about the waterfronts, which are an area suitable for the location of significant culture-forming objects. These examples I have shown you. Surely it will be visible in a couple of years because it's a big tension to do such interesting things on the waterfront. The adaptive reuse of central waterfront areas equipped with infrastructure supports the idea of a compact city. The idea of compact city demands to make the empty spaces, to reuse the empty spaces, to reuse it wisely with the modern tendencies of full responsibility for the past, but also for the future. Then the revitalization and the adaptive reuse of the waterfront areas is strengthening the identity of modern port city. This identity factor is a very important thing in Europe, I think in Poland especially, and the building of the new phase of the waterfront areas and also adaptive reuse, the reuse of the old industrial buildings, not tearing down everything, but trying to find out how to make the new life for them. It's very important for building the identity of citizens with the city. The attractiveness of the waterside for center-forming public space and for housing purposes, as well as for recreation, is building the well-being of residents, as it is evidenced by the high level of acceptance of already completed waterfront revitalization projects. This well-being of residents is a new tendency also, which is also due to the pandemic situation very much stressed. Not only the nice form, not only the functionality of space, but the well-being of residents, good areas for recreation, good areas for being together in the open space and of using the city. It's a very essential. In the specific case of Szczecin, the connection to the city center structures with the seawaters create the unique situation of large sailing ships presence and possibilities to extend and unique urban related social events. So this is a specific of Szczecin, which not many cities really have. So we want also to consider that as a very important element for our studio. And also many projects are devoted to different types of marinas, of embankment arrangements and different facilities which are at the water or on the water. Okay, I think it's everything what we have prepared for you. If you have any further questions, we are of course very eager to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was a very beautiful presentation. I think I've got the idea of what you do and how you do these things in your studio. For me, the summary is you are trying to change places in a very modern way. You are by adding them urban qualities, by adding them very iconic buildings, by adding them high quality environments that bring people together. I'm in love with your authorities who just get in contact with you and your students, trying to get ideas from what they do, because in Turkey also we have lot of waterfront areas that needs good quality development. Some groups are doing it very well, although we hear or see very different quality or very different level projects day by day. So it is very good that you have good connections with your authorities, and I hope they have inspiration from them, not only look at the projects and do whatever they want, but also have some inspiration, because it's all very well done, very methodological thing that you do in your studio, as far as I see. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was very valuable for me. If the audience has questions, as I said before, can write it in the chat section. There are a lot of questions. Oh, I have to read them. Okay. First of all, first of them is from Esin Boyacıoğlu. Professor Boyacıoğlu will be presenting next month. The presentations were both very emancipating and exciting, I would say. Thanks a lot for sharing those experiences with us, dear Zeynep, Zbigniew, and Jakub. My question is to our colleagues Zbigniew and Jakub. The waterfront area is very precious for Chechen, and it is very important to make it open to public access. How are the students dealing with problem of gentrification?
Gentrification.
The problem of gentrification. Well, at the waterfront at the moment there's not yet that problem, because there are not yet new living quarters built, but they will come. And the more of the gentrification process is visible in the old city of Szczecin, where the revitalization of 19th century quarters is following, and due to that revitalization, of course, the costs of the houses, of the flats are rising, and there's a natural or forced change of the society which is living there. The situation is also very specific, because it is not they are not mostly the ownership of the owners of the flats. They are mostly the tenants, low-income people living in the old city. And after reconstruction, these flats are mostly sold on the market. So, in fact, the tenants cannot afford to continue living in this quarters. There were some programs which should stop this process. We have a very good example of renovation of such a small-scale renovation projects, which has been done in one of the parts of the old city, with the aim to keep the tenants in their place where they used to live, only helping them to renovate the buildings and the areas around. We have a kind of a society of such a tenant society. I don't know the right English name. The social
society of social housing,
something like that. State of social housing, and this firm is a kind of a city-owned firm, and they are trying to make possible renting the flats, not buying it like in the open market of immobilities. And what we expect at the waterfront, I think there will be it will be very expensive, in fact, because the ground there, the cost of the new investment is quite expensive. So the flats, if they will be built there, will be also very expensive. But the flats are not only the only function which will be there. So I guess it will be a lot of different center-based functions, like offices, like shops, like restaurants, and so on. So this gentrification probably will be not that problem as in other places where already the buildings are existing on the waterfront. Okay.
For me, it's okay. And also, besides the gentrification, I was about to ask about the iconic forms. I think Polish students have are very good at creating beautiful forms. I don't know how it happens, because maybe it's because of your cultural background, maybe it's you're in the middle of Europe, so that your students are fed with arts a lot. Maybe it's the research, you just push them. It's a lot of artwork. They really understand it, and they really digest it. They really transform it to buildings. I have such kind of idea because of some competition results as well in a digital platform called Inspirelli, for example. A Polish student won, and when I look at her work, it is beautifully done as well. So this iconic architecture, do you think, as you said, in the pandemic, people realized that they do not need very beautiful environments, but they need open space. They need free space. They need social space. So how do you, what do you think about it? I mean, where to stop in encouraging students to create iconic buildings, and when to push and how to push the socialness of spaces, the materiality of buildings. I mean, the environment, the nature. So how do you manage these subjects? How do you manage these topics in your studio, so that it doesn't go to one end? It doesn't go to an iconic building always, but also it goes to useful, functional, modern, and habitable places. Did I confuse?
It's a very important question. Thank you, and I think it's very essential for architectural and urban design process. First of all, it's a matter of location. In my opinion, maybe I am. It's my personal opinion, but I try to teach in this way my students, that this analysis of place give you some answer whether this place where you are allowed to do something is enough capable to carry the iconic building. There are some places which are just from the topography already addicted to be iconic, or have this possibility to build some iconic buildings. And there are some places where you shouldn't do that because it will kill the surroundings. It will make it inhabitable. So in fact, we are trying to make, for instance, with a high-rise building, we have a very good team in our school, which is analyzing the cities in terms of possibility of creation of high-rise buildings. And this is mostly the compositional analysis. And there are some places which are possible to do that, and there are some places which are forbidden because they will make the whole cityscape insane. And also with the smaller buildings, in my opinion, there are some places which are very much exposed and where these iconic buildings can be placed with a big effort, with a good result, which are, for instance, some important points of the city, and there are also some places like gaps in the existing structures, which should be only filled, but not specifically underlined with some iconic buildings. Because if we make only some iconic buildings, it will be no more iconic because it will be a kind of the mess instead of the harmonious development of the city. So this quality, this urban quality, this urban proper location of different buildings is very, very important. We have a very interesting building which has been built a few years ago. It is a Philharmony in Szczecin, a new Philharmony. It was also an architectural competition won by Spanish team architectural office Barozzi Vega, and they built this. They planned this. The competition was for the area, which was previously also in the German times a concert house. So it was a place with a history, and also there were some discussions in the city before the changing this location for the new Philharmony, whether this is a good location or maybe it's on the waterfront or maybe elsewhere. But finally, this historic context won, and it was a good, in my opinion, it was a good choice because it is in the middle of the city, and it is also in some extent exposed due to the place which is before this Philharmony, and it is also building this compact city. So it has a lot of qualities, being also iconic and also being, on the other hand, a part of the city, both seen as a historic continuation and as a formal continuation of the building lines, height of the buildings and block form of the city. So this is, I think, a good example of placing the iconic buildings. Okay, maybe it's enough.
Okay, I think that's the magic of architecture, being iconic and being part of the city at the same time. This is the ultimate success.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
I shortly add that many of those buildings are open to the public. For example, the Philharmonic Hall has very beautiful interior lobby that is open also at like mostly all the day, even if there is no events, when there is no concerts, it's still open for citizens, for tourists. And some other examples, like a museum in front of Philharmonic, it has slope roof, that can be used for many activities, open events, and all those iconic buildings that are constructed also near to the waterfront. For example, this Maritime Science Center that we shown in the presentation. We also have another example of a new theater near to the waterfront. When they will be finished, they will offer, for example, open roof, like open terrace for the public. And also this theater will open, still open, another open roof with grassy field. So those objects can be used by everyone, every time. So I think it's also a big value of this kind of architecture to make it usable, not only for the purposes, the main purposes that the objects were designed.
Okay, just like the Pompidou Center in Paris. Usually people are amazed with its form, its high-tech architecture. But if you go there, you get amazed with the empty space in front of it, because it is free. As you get into the building, you pay for everything. So the gentrification starts. But of course, the open space is for everybody. So the balance and the togetherness is the magic of architecture. And as far as I understand, you teach your students how to do both and together, how to combine them together. And this is one important point for me. Thank you very much. Also, Esin Boyacıoğlu thanks you. Thanks a lot and warmest greetings. Hope see you soon, she says.
Thank you.
Okay. Aysu Akılın, Professor Aysu Akılın asks, my question is to Zbigniew. In my presentation last month, contrary to Uludağ studio method, I see that the context of place is very important in your studio work. So, has your studio training method been affected by online training during the pandemic? Because you are dealing with the context a lot, what did you do in the pandemic? You couldn't be able to go there, touch there, discover there, feel the space. So how did you do it? I mean, from the distance, from the screen?
Well, it is a very hard time to do the design in the remote way. I don't feel well with that. However, we had, as you know, maybe in Poland, some very irregular system of where we are at school and where we are not at school. It is changing. The last year was very hard because we have been on the online teaching almost the whole semester, the last semester, the summer semester of last academic year. But now we are forced to be at school, but we see it probably it will happen the same because the wave of
Omicron.
Wave of COVID is growing. Yes. So what we do, first of all, it is not forbidden to go to the site to look at the site. It's not forbidden to make photographs. It's not forbidden to make site analysis. You can share the analysis in the on the screen. It is, of course, it's not the same, but it's almost the same because even if we meet, we share our drawings on the screen. Of course, I prefer to draw, to make some models and so on, and it is very not so much possible due to the distance, but we try to organize a kind of not a meeting, but a kind of a show of what we are doing in some period of time. And we have, it's not the best, but we try to do our best to give the students the most knowledge and the most instruction as we can.
There are also some site visits, for example, during conservation, architectural design on the first semester, this analytical semester. Our colleague, PhD Izabela Kozłowska, in October, she organized a walk through this Old Town area, and this walk, of course, was connected with some discussion, asking students about some conclusions.
In the open space.
Yes, in the open space.
Even before the pandemic, we have done different excursions, food excursions, or some excursions to other cities, to other places. So, to some extent, it is possible to do. You have to a little bit to adjust the program, but it is possible to meet in the open space.
Okay, thank you very much, and Akıl'ın also thanks a lot. And my question is to Zeynep. You introduced lots of methods. I think you introduced a lot of methods, to your students at the beginning of the semester, what they mean, how they can be multiplied, how they can be interpreted, how they can be put into different forms. Do you think they can be applied every geography? Because you said students choose their own places themselves. I don't know how it happens. Is it because they like a place, or is it because they think that their design is suitable to that place? So how does it happen? I mean, how do you pass from the all these formal trials to the reality? Do you think all these formal games, all these formal issues apply to every geography or every context? Or how do you do it? I mean, how do you translate?
Thank you very much for asking such a precious question. I also want to answer to Aysu Hocam. Actually, contextual approach to site is not less important than other studios in our studio, because it doesn't only help to the formal process, formation of the forms, but also it helps to the formation of programs of the students. Now, if I come to your question specifically, in the first phase of the studio, when we ask them to make an abstract model, we said that as architects, we deal with voids, we deal with volumes, we deal with surfaces, the elements like that. And how can you compose them together? Then we let them to deliver, to define those concepts, to find those concepts from a big bucket by themselves. They see some architectural examples, like they discussed nesting, promenading, sequentiality, whatever. With the projects afterwards, they understand how this abstract concept fits to a real space, realistic space when it's constructed. Because architecture is the second part, actually. The first one is the cognition, architectural conception process, and the second one is realization. They have to make it realized. So when they choose their sites, we doesn't insist on them to use the same architecture, the same abstract approach that they developed in the first phase, but we expect them to repeat I mean, to synthesize the forms to show what they learned from the first phase and to demonstrate it on the real side. But according to the conditions of the site, characteristics of the site, geographic conditions, topographic conditions, neighborhood, traditions, but in each site, it's not as important as they are not balanced. In some sites, some land, it is, for example, geography is much heavier than the others. In some, the neighborhood, daily life is more complex than the geography or the formal things of the site. Traffic can be more important, or the monotonous landscape can be the problem for them, or the crowding. So they developed the abstract form due to the restrictions or due to the problems of the site, because they have to answer what they criticize. For example, if they say, I want to, this monotonous plots, I mean, for example, in Ankara, we have some sites like Demetevler, for example, or Siteler region, where all those carpenter shops and furniture shops there. There's a kind of very monotonous, very actually same buildings. You cannot even identify one street from another. So they want to break this very simple urban space. Maybe they want to revitalize, as Zbigniew studio, the urban culture, urban memory there. Maybe industrial archaeology should be highlighted. So due to this critical approach, they have to define their form. What we expect them actually announce their formal approach with respect to the problematics of the site, not something like it is true there from the sky. Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. So as far as I understand, once they have the abstract work, they do not put it 100%, they do not carry 100% to the site, but their critical stance, what they criticize in the context reshapes this abstract model when they are applying to the site, as far as I understand. So that's how you have the poetic and iconic results in the end. You don't lose the abstract parts effect in the end product, maybe.
Yes, architecture is seductive.
Sorry,
architecture is seductive, I mean.
Seductive, yes, sure. Maybe we should not be sure. I don't know. Nowadays, people need something different. I don't think that they need architecture very much instead of it. I think they need good quality space. I don't know, it refers to architecture. Space became something different nowadays. Now we are in the space as well. The screen is a space, screen became a space, or the space is created by the computers became the space as well. So we escaped from our real worlds, real environments, so that people are trying to sell virtual environments nowadays. So I think we have a lot to see in forthcoming 4 or 5 years time. There are very new developments. So thank you very much. People, thank you. And there is another question, I think, to Zeynep, please. The first part of the work is placeless, yes. Then, as long as you apply the concept in the first part to the second stage, for me, it is forced to suit into the existing context. This is another interpretation. What I say.
May I ask?
If you agree or disagree, do you force? I mean,
I think there is a misunderstanding. Actually, we don't force to apply the form. We force.
Yeah.
We force them to apply the method. How they reach that volume, how they get it, what they inspired from, what they discuss, what kind of relation between forms, what kind of relation between solids and voids, how the abstractions of space. We want them to apply those abstractions. But really, this is a very good question on the other side, to tell the truth, because our students also make the same mistake. They think that we expect them to place the abstract model, just scale it and put it on the Google Earth, and oh, okay, done, that's the form. No, that's not it. How they reach that relation, that special relation, and the quality of that volumetric thing. But if it works, if it fits to the site, if not, they have to find another relation. That's the meaning of the studio, why we are together. It's the know-how for process. We all work together. We all, this is the synergy of the tutors, the conductors of the studio, and the students. We learn from each other. We also learn from them, go back to our critics and renew them, replace our critics and our guidance for them. So it's not the same thing. I mean, the abstraction to put the form to the place and try to fit it. It's not that. Not the aim, the target of the studio is not that. Thank you.
Sure, it's very clear for me. I think there is the critical part is adaptation. How do you transform this abstract thing to the real thing? The critical part is that. It's very obvious. Thank you. So my last question to both sides. As far as I know, everybody knows you are very hardworking professionals. You are doing your practice in the office as well. As Zbigniew explained at the beginning of his speech, many of Turkish students go to his office by Erasmus program, and Zeynep also runs an office with her husband Orhan Uludağ, and I see Orhan a lot of times in the studio. I understand the point. Two Uludağs are better than one. That's okay. But what's the relation between your practice and your teaching? Do you teach what you practice, or you practice what you're teaching? I'm asking this because I came across new developments in the United States and in Canada, that they're opening master's degree programs for office owners. Once office owners have real problems, they take their studios, they take their ateliers, their offices, they apply to the master's program, and the university and the office work together. So the academy is involved in the work as well. So I started to ask myself, does academy need the profession, or the profession needs the academy? What do you think about it? Zbigniew, please.
I think it's very involving together. So my experience from the profession is and some thoughts about architecture, about the profession, about art, what the students should know starting their profession. It's a base for the teaching. So beside of the knowledge which we give them as a part of the program, we have to give to the students also some knowledge going out of our praxis, and this praxis is just everyday praxis and everyday problems which we have to force to overcome. So it's a good, I think it's a good resource for teaching. It's a one way. If it goes opposite, of course it goes opposite also, because being a professor, being a researcher in different subjects, I am also asked by some developers or some investors to solve some problems which they cannot solve by themselves, because it's maybe too complex, maybe too deep into the history or something like that. So in fact, there's being a researcher and having the knowledge about the processes, about the structure, about the planning, and so on. We can also use this knowledge in the running office, in the running projects, or as advisors also, to advise how to manage different problems. So I think it's very important, and we stress very much in our faculty that the teachers which are teaching design, which are teaching architectural design, should be also practitioners, should do something also by themselves, because if not, it will be very theoretical, and this theory might go to nowhere, to some mystification, maybe some virtual existence, which is not the real life. And we are, unfortunately, as architects, very much connected to the real life. Well, my last very challenging experience in my office was the biggest tower in Szczecin. It's not like in Istanbul. It has only 110 meters of height, but it was a very long term challenge, and many students, also your Turkish students, been there at the building site. This year we have finished it already, and I'm very so somebody has to trust me that it will be okay with the tower, because if you are not experienced, you don't know if it will be okay, or if it's the right position, or if it's the right height, if it's the right form. And this on reliability on the architect who is deciding that to go this way, and we will look for that and that material. It's based on the experience. Yes, so this experience is very important. Also for the smaller projects, which are the absolvents doing, they have to have some experience. Good, very good if they collect this experience in good offices, because this knowledge which is on the market, which is outside the university, is also very important. Very important because it's real. It is something which we build, that will stay, which will be probably longer than we leave. It's a huge responsibility. All what we do should be done with a big responsibility for what we are doing. So praxis is very important item. We also have the product in the offices. So the students are very much also related in many cases to the office. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, or maybe due to not directly the pandemic, but the approach to life due to pandemic, there's a very big demand on manpower on the market everywhere, not only in architectural offices, but also on building sites, in every aspect. There is no enough working power for enterprises. I don't know if it's a pandemic result or maybe other result of the policy, but it's a pity also that the students maybe are not so much willing to use this opportunity to get the praxis in the offices. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, and congratulations for the tower as well. I would like to see it when it's finished.
Let's go together.
Yes, why not? And you, Zeynep.
Thank you very much. Before starting my answer, I would like, on behalf of our faculty, I would like to thank Zbigniew, because he hosted many of our students during this Erasmus stage and Erasmus mobility. It's really precious. Almost all, I'm sure all of them came back with very good impressions. They said we learned a lot, and all the process of this stage they stayed there was very beneficial for them, very fruitful. I really thank you again, Zbigniew. Yes, without theory, we cannot have practice, and without practice, we cannot apply any theory. An architecture should be on both sides, but it's not art. Of course, it has aesthetic considerations, aesthetic qualities. Everything is very nice, but there is the reality and the site, the murmur of the site. It's very important. So teachers from the professional practice, I think they are experienced a little more to hear that murmur of the site. The restrictions, the illegal rules and regulations, whatever, they are also part of this design process. Not the creative process, but the realization process. So we have to teach all in the studio, but the balance is very important. I mean, if we only discuss the concept formation thing, the theme and the physical formation of the concept, it should be realized on a real site. It should be discussed, find its base on a real site. And students should learn how to act due to this, for example, daily life patterns, the people, their needs, their requirements, their expectations. For example, we discussed that regeneration issue. One of my youngest PhD students is here. She worked this topic in Cappadocia, Uçhisar. Actually, what is the architectural part of this regeneration? It's very important, and the professional life teaches us this part. So in the studio, we have to discuss all, and in the composition of the tutors in a studio, there should be someone from the practice, really, to tell the others, stop, there's a technological problem, or there is something wrong in this site. Yes, we have to all support each other in that sense. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I see that both education supports real life, the practice, and the practice supports education. They are the two sides of the same coin for you. So you make the money. Okay, thank you very much for joining us and for your presentations, for your exhibitions, Zbigniew, Jakub, and Zeynep. We had great time with you. We learned a lot from you because, as I said at the beginning, each studio is a microcosmos. And if you do not understand, decode these environments, very special environments, very special atmospheres, we cannot develop it. So we should be focusing on such issues, such studio environments more and more, and we'll be talking about it more and more. It's usually the successes of the studio that we are focusing on. It's usually the methodology of the studio that we are focusing on. But as once we start speaking, then new subjects, new topics of the studio will be opened. And today, for myself, on behalf of my audience, I've learned a lot from you. Thank you very much for both themes. If you do not have any other last words, everybody, thanks to you. If you have no other things to say as the last words, we can leave now. Zbigniew, do you have any last words?
I want to once again to thank you very much for this precious event, and I'm very moved to see you, all my friends in Turkey. It's very. I got also some very interesting chats here. Thank you very much. I think it's very important to discuss about architecture. This discussion is in Poland is going on by different occasions of competitions, of problems which are arising in the city. At school, we are discussing also by different PhD presentations and so on. It's very important to discuss because it's a problem which will be architecture as a problem, or urban design as a problem. It's something which will be never fully exhausted. I think it's so complex and so complicated also. So it's very nice that we are able to discuss over the borders, over the pandemic, and over everything. It's really a good idea. I wish you all the best and good efforts in the future meetings also. And I guess we will be able to also contribute to the book you are planning with some ideas we had in our studio and in our presentation. Thank you again, and be sane and be away from pandemic and from other problems. And I hope when it will be more clear, the sky over us, so we will meet in Poland or in Turkey or elsewhere at the conferences. Thank you very much.
Yes,
thank you. Thank you
for a great time, great evening, and inspiring presentations and discussions.
Thank you. And also, I would like to hear about this temporality issue once it is over, once it is finished, once Zbigniew says, yes, it is enough.
Yes.
Of course, anytime we can share this topic.
Okay, thank you very much. And Zeynep, the last words.
Thank you very much, Pınar, for gathering us together with our students, with my old friends, with our old friends together in such a wonderful medium. Very nice to hear you, Zbigniew and Jakub. I missed you a lot, and it was a very good presentation. I learned a lot. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. I'm looking forward for the future ones, Pınar. We are proud of you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And for the future, we will continue until the end of the May 2022. So we have 5 more. Each month we are hosting 2 teams, one from Gazi, one from European. So next month we will be doing the same, and 2 exhibitions also we open as a cumulative. In the end, I think we will have a very good knowledge of what we do and how we do things similarly and differently. Maybe we seem that we are doing it very differently, but all we are dealing with is architecture. So let architecture be your life's motive, and let your sky be as bright as possible. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.